Thanks, Andrew. Although I am a Canadian, so I could perhaps be more welcome. But thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me a few minutes in a long evening and a lot of fun. So thanks for organizing this, Andrew. As we sit here tonight in this small room, there's 7 billion people on the planet. It's hard to get your heads around that sometimes. We know that 1 billion economists tell us live in extreme poverty. Another 2 to 3 billion live on $2 or less a day, which really means that they can't afford enough food each day or every day consistently for them and their families. And we know that there's hundreds of millions of jobs that need to be created for young people finishing high school, particularly in developing countries, and not to mention just around these neighborhoods. And so what does that have to do with Source and being here tonight? As Andrew said, I'm Jeremy Hockenstein. About 13 years ago, I went on vacation to Cambodia to see Angkor Wat. Have any of you been there? To beautiful Buddhist temples. We should do the next 5x10 there. But I was really struck by the people that I met, and just so many internet cafes, so much English, a real sense that globalization was going to bring job opportunities. And I turned to people and said, what kind of jobs do you have? People said, we don't really have that many jobs. Cambodia. Even people who are going through work training through the World Bank, and other people who are learning computers, people with disabilities, and showed me proudly all the graduates, but then didn't have any jobs. And so I decided then with some friends from McKinsey, where I used to work, that we would go back and try to do something. We went back a few months later, rented an apartment for a month, and decided to start an outsourcing company. We actually started it as a nonprofit, which it still is today, because the ultimate goal wasn't to earn profits for the founders, but was to have a social impact. But we were very clear from the beginning that it had to have a business model in order to succeed. So many people told us we were crazy back then, mostly Cambodians themselves, that said this would never work. But I'm proud to say that not too many years later, we now have Digital Divide Data, which has 1,000 people working in Cambodia, now Laos as well, and also Nairobi, Kenya, where we opened just about 3 years ago. We are profitable, and we have hundreds of clients we've served over time. And our model we've developed is to say, let's focus on young people finishing high school, who are very smart through exams, very motivated through interviews, but come from poor families such that they otherwise wouldn't be able to go on to university or even get any kind of skilled job. So their potential would really be underutilized. And what they just really need is an opportunity, it's just a chance. And so we run a 4-year work-study program. Our employees work 36 hours a week doing outsourcing work for clients around the world, which I can tell you a bit about, and then get scholarships and loans to go to university. And so we have 4-year retention built in, which is good relative to a lot of this kind of stuff. But we really pride ourselves on what happens to people after those 4 years. And we call those graduates. We've had 600 graduates now. Some that have stayed and got promoted to ED, but most of them have gone on to better jobs outside afterwards. And we measure our impact through annual surveys, looking at people's salaries in particular, as well as some broader metrics of standard of living. And we see, for example, that our graduates, on average, are earning $300 a month in these locations, where the average income is about $50 a month. And graduates 5-6 years out are earning $500-600, which is real middle class there for being able to send your kids to college. So that's what we're doing. Over those years, we've developed a little sector together with other colleagues in this work. We call it impact sourcing. How can you have social impact through outsourcing work? And so I just want to share with you today, because I think all of you are really part of that, perhaps without knowing, and just talk about, or talk at you, I guess is the format, but after we can talk together about how together we can have a greater impact. So, as I said, impact sourcing to us really means how can you give opportunities, jobs, to populations that otherwise wouldn't have them. Whether, I don't know if I can say this straight face, the bloke down the block, he was brilliant, but socially awkward and has Asperger's. Or someone from the inner city who got themselves through high school through really tough circumstances, but doesn't have the ability to go on to college or really find the right kind of job. And in our case, we focus, as I said, on young people with great talent, who would otherwise not be able to realize that talent in those countries. Now, why is this happening today? I think there's a few reasons. One is that outsourcing has been very successful, even from this, both, as you know, from perspectives of the clients, maybe debate on kind of what's worked, what hasn't. Of course, there's been lessons learned, but overall, it's been a good force for economic development for companies in developed countries. But it's also been a great force, we know, for college graduates in Bangalore. A few other cities in India, China, and Philippines, you've got 80% of the workers who've been a great thing, and that has to continue. But I think what many of us are saying is, how can more of those benefits go to poor populations in poor countries and disadvantaged groups within those? And how can we really use this industry together as a stepping stone for people? I mean, you probably don't think of this yourself, but I don't know, all of you are involved in probably millions of dollars of kind of outsourcing work over the years, and not only did you pay money to get output that you need for your company or services, But you're really spending millions of dollars in developing countries. There's really economic development at its best. And I think that's the second reason. There's been, I think, increased disillusionment with our overall international development kind of world, of World Bank funding and loans and aid and so on. And there's a real hunger for what are market-based approaches that really work. DDD, ultimately, what it's about is just giving someone an opportunity. We can't do the work for themselves. We just have the chance to come to work on time, work on teams, do high-quality work for people like you on the other side. It's really able to transform people and give them the skills so they can go on and move from a big pool of unskilled laborers, like we have hundreds of millions, to a much smaller pool of people with some problem-solving skills with teamwork and so on. So that's, one reason is this has been successful, and how do we extend those benefits more broadly? We've got a disillusionment with how international aid works. We've got a growing sector for outsourcing, and I think a lot of questions about, okay, as costs go up in different places, how does this continue to go to other regions, and how we bring in other kind of talent for that? And then also in a lot of cases, even so, when we add robotics and machine learning, like we learned from our friends at Source, what that's really doing is you can automate a lot of it, but you can't automate all of it. And so the question is, as we bring down the cost per unit because of that, a lot of the work that's left can't be done machines, but you don't need a PhD to do it. And so we can match the labor we need with the skills. And so, for example, in our case, in Kenya, these young people from the slums that we hire, their English is very good. It's a language instruction since elementary school. And so you probably don't have call centers because of the kind of accent infrastructure. You can do a lot of kind of web research, a lot of writing, a lot of handwriting transcriptions you can't do, for example, in places like Cambodia and Laos. On the DD case, what we focus on is our roots were a lot of data entry and digitization kind of work, books and magazines and newspapers. We just finished 4 million pages for the British Library of Historical Newspapers. We do work for Ancestry and Bright Solve, it's genealogical work. And we're also trying to get more into this work, and ask for your help, is how do we transition from that kind of work to more recurring kinds of corporate work that we can do, that's similar kinds of tasks that need to be done. So we're having a lot of promise, and I'd like people's ideas, and get a couple ideas even in this room today, about kind of recurring kinds of work that have those kind of problem-solving research skills. So for example, we're doing increasing amounts of web research. So for example, for Fossil, which is a brand around luxury watches and so on, they want to monitor what's the prices their items being sold around the world. Online, and are there fakes that are on? So we have people that are monitoring this. You could use, robots and scraping to get some of it, but you then have to, kind of make sense of it. For an investment firm, they send us names of people and companies every day that they want us to do research on to see if there are any articles about corruption or about them. And you could do automatic search, but then, is it, Simon Selkirk, or is it, his cousin, or is it his brother who was, there's an article about? So it does take that kind of work. And so we're looking for increasing amounts of kind of ongoing tasks that we can have people together with technology do. One of our employees, Sheba Otino, grew up in a slum in Kenya with a single mother living, in just a metal, roof over her head. And her only dream every day, like all of us growing up, is really how can she have a better life for her parents, her mother, and her siblings. And now through this work at DDD is finally giving her an opportunity to get some education for herself. She's taking some accounting courses, doing some work she's proud of, and starting to support her siblings. So, the question then is, what have we learned first? I mentioned a couple of them, but that this economic opportunity, I think, only works when it's really based on creating value and creating a business. We need to give people opportunities themselves to earn for themselves. We need to, even when we're doing it this kind of way, we really have to have merit standards. You guys here, we don't say take lower quality because we're doing this. We need the same quality, we need a competitive price, and we need to show that we can then have a real social impact together. That's different than just kind of checking a box on a kind of CSR newsletter. What can you do here? One is, I think, just, think about this idea of impact sourcing. When you just think about how you're thinking about this work, you're all really philanthropists, you're all really international development professionals in what you're doing, and think about how can you meet your objectives that you have on your KPIs today, but how can you really also think about how we do this work in a way that lifts people up? And ultimately, it's going to be better for the work itself. It's going to be better for the people that are doing this work. But how are we developing human capital? If we have attrition rates of 100% a year for some of this kind of work, that's not good for you. It's not good for the people that are doing it. It's clearly not the right kind of stepping stone, the right kind of investment. So learn more. Rockefeller Foundation made a $100 million commitment to this field last year, bringing our work first to Kenya and now saying they're going to expand it throughout Africa, digital jobs this way. So search for Rockefeller Foundation, Accenture, Microsoft have done some reports. think about working with DDD or others when you're thinking about your kind of portfolio. Obviously, you're not going to give us your real-time banking, live stuff to do from Kenya, but there's a lot of work which we can do competitively. We can have a social impact. You can motivate your employees, and we're doing to really think about how this works. So just let us show in others. It's really about the field rather than DDD that this kind of work can be done from a young person from the slums in Kenya. So thank you, and good night.